I've used the Lumix S5ii day in, day out for around about 5 or 6 months now. It is a brilliant hybrid camera that provides amazing video capabilities that we're all aware of by now, along with some incredible photo capabilities as well to create high quality imagery. I still think though that this camera gets overlooked quite a lot and people tend to look more towards the Canons and the Sonys. So I just want to talk about 5 reasons why you should consider using the Lumix S5ii. And it might genuinely be the perfect hybrid camera for you in an ever-growing world of impressive hybrid cameras. The S5ii has a 24 megapixel sensor, which is the same as the original S5, and when you compare it to other cameras, 24 megapixels might not sound like a huge amount when you've got cameras with 33 or 60 megapixels in the A7 IV, for example. Megapixels isn't the be-all and end-all. More megapixels doesn't mean better photos, and 24 megapixels is perfect for if you are just uploading to social media, but you can also get some great print sizes. These are A2 print sizes on my wall, and they look brilliant. I could probably have enlarged them even further if I wanted to. If you did want something more than 24 megapixels though, it does have a built-in high resolution mode which allows you to take a photo up to 96 megapixels, which is crazy. Brilliant if you're into things like product photography or macro photography, and it just allows so much more detail in your image. The image quality for video in this camera is just second to none. The dynamic range is insane, the colors look incredible, and I genuinely think that the quality of the image you get from this camera is way better than any other mirrorless camera, especially of this price range. When you look at the A7 IV, the R6, R6 Mark II, the quality of the image that you get from this, I genuinely think is way better than those other mirrorless cameras. Video is where the S5ii is mainly focused towards, and it allows for shooting 4K up to 60 frames a second. There is a slight crop in 60 frames a second, but that's not the end of the world. And it shoots 422 10-bit color, which is incredible, and it allows you to have so much room for color grading your image when you get into editing your footage. What's great though is you can shoot up to 6K video in open gate, and what that means is that you can shoot the full width of the sensor. So typically when you're shooting video, you're shooting in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Shooting in open gate means that you shoot the full width of the sensor, and that allows you extra room to be able to repurpose your footage if you want to. If you're into making things like TikToks or Instagram Reels, having the extra width of the sensor allows you to lose less of the image so you can still show more in those. Does that make sense? That's not the technical term, but I hope you get what I mean. But there are so many different video codecs built into the camera as well, with 4K video shooting modes, HD shooting modes, 422, 420 codecs, you get your 8-bit color codecs, and if you go for the S5ii, there are even more than in the S5ii. Vlog is probably one of the best log profiles that you can use to shoot your videos in. It is so versatile, the dynamic range as I've mentioned, the colors that you get from it, and it just allows you so much room when you get into your editing software to be able to push and pull it around to create the desired look that you want for your project. Not only that, but you get some amazing video assist capabilities that you don't even get in some cinema cameras that are more than twice the price of the S5ii. It is crazy. The IBIS in the S5ii is the best IBIS system I've ever used. Now, if you don't know what IBIS is, it stands for inbuilt image stabilization, and what it means is that the sensor inside the camera moves around to try and reduce some of those handshakes that you get when you're shooting handheld, and they can ruin your footage. So IBIS is there to help smooth out your footage, and it works so well in the S5ii. It worked incredibly well in the S5 as well. I'm shooting on the S5 now. The S5ii just takes it to another level. You can get some stuff that you'd be pretty pushed to think was shot on an actual gimbal. It is that good. And there's 3 different modes to it. So there's the normal IBIS setting. There is then E-stabilization, which adds on a small electronic crop so it can stabilize the footage that way. That works brilliantly. But then there is also Boost IS, which is just insane, and it will literally make it look like your shots were shot on a tripod. Now, you want to be using that when you're not moving around a lot and you're just pointing it at directly at a subject, you don't want to be moving around because then you'll start to get a wobble in the corners and things like that. But for just handheld static shots, it is absolutely insane. It works in photo and video mode as well, so if you wanted to shoot handheld photos at a slightly slower shutter speed, you can do that, all with using IBIS. It's great. The S5ii, along with the original S5, is part of the L-mount Alliance, which was introduced back in 2018 as a way of trying to standardize a lens mount between Panasonic, Sigma and Leica. But what it means is that you can use all of those lenses across all of Panasonic, Leica, Sigma cameras without any lens issues. And that lens selection is constantly growing. At first it did mean that there wasn't a huge amount of choices, but now you will never be short of whatever you need, whether you need different apertures, focal lengths, specialized lenses like macro lenses, big telephoto lenses, and they all work brilliantly on this camera with no issues at all. These little S primes that you can get for the L mount are absolutely brilliant. I have here the 50 and the 85 1.8. I also have this Sigma 100 to 400, which is again the L mount. But even the Lumix S20-60 kit lens I'm using right now, I use all the time. It is a brilliant kit lens and way better than any other kit lens on the market. As we all know by now, the one thing holding Lumix cameras back for years was the autofocus system. However, that is now changed with the S5ii, with it introducing phase detect autofocus instead of contrast-based autofocus that was on the original S5, and that is still usable. I'm using it right now, and I hope it's kept me in focus for most of the video. It seems to have. But the phase detect in the S5ii is night and day above the original S5. It is so good, and I think it is now definitely up there, if not very quickly catching up with the likes of the Canon and the Sony autofocus systems. It works so well, and if you're sat in front of the camera recording videos like this rather than behind the camera shooting someone else where you can focus manually, you need a decent autofocus system that you can rely on. So there's 5 reasons as to why the S5ii might be the perfect hybrid camera for you. And I've not even mentioned the price. There is a 6th bonus reason as to why you should choose the S5ii, because the price of it is just nuts. You can get some incredible bundles where you get it with a couple of lenses and it still works out cheaper than the A7 IV or the R6 Mark II. It's crazy good value, and it's just a bit of a no-brainer if you ask me. There are a couple of small irritations I have with this camera, which I might make a video about at some point, but you get these little things with any camera. This little dial on the top, for example, sometimes gets in the way, and I find myself knocking it when I'm shooting and changing a couple of settings without meaning to. So I just feel like that is slightly in the wrong position, but it's not the end of the world. You very quickly get used to it. There's nothing though overall that I genuinely find myself really disliking about this camera. It's my favorite camera I've ever used. I think it is definitely a camera worth looking at if you are looking for a new mirrorless camera. I love it. I'd highly recommend it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to know more about the S5ii and some of its shooting modes, you can watch this video here.